Rain hammered against the Chicago skyline like a fist demanding entry. I gripped the divorce papers, my knuckles white, ready to sever the marriage the moment he walked in. But when the door opened, it wasn't my husband. It was a stranger in a soaked black coat, offering me a deal that stopped my heart. $150 million. The condition was simple but terrifying. Do not leave him tonight. Wait exactly 3 months. I am Autumn Wright, 36 years of age. And standing before the floor-to-ceiling glass of our high-rise apartment, I felt less like a woman in her own home and more like a specimen trapped in a very expensive jar. Below me, the Chicago River was a black vein pulsing through the city, slick with oil and the relentless downpour that had been hammering the glass for hours. The city lights smeared against the rain, dissolving into meaningless streaks of amber and white. In my hand, the phone belonging to my husband, Raymond Hughes, felt unnaturally heavy, cold enough to send a shiver straight through the palm of my hand and into the marrow of my bones. It was a sleek device, a piece of modern armor that he usually guarded with the paranoia of a state secret, but tonight, he had left it charging on the kitchen island when he went down to the garage to supposedly retrieve a forgotten briefcase, a careless mistake, or perhaps arrogance. The screen lit up. Cutting through the dim ambient light of the living room, it was a notification, a single banner of text that hovered there, glowing with malicious intent. The sender was not a name saved in his contacts, but the preview displayed the name Sierra Lane. I stared at the name. It sounded manufactured, like something too perfect to be real. Yet the message below it was devastatingly grounded in reality. Thank you for the transfer this morning. Tonight, I need you at the usual apartment. My breath hitched, but it did not leave my body. It simply sat there, a hard lump in my throat. I did not scream. I did not throw the phone against the reinforced glass. Instead, my thumb moved with a terrifying calmness. I swiped up. The passcode screen appeared. I typed in 4 digits, 0612, June 12th, our wedding anniversary. The phone unlocked instantly. It was a perfect, silent mockery. He used the day we promised our lives to each other as the key to the life he was hiding from me. I went straight to the photos first. It was a masochistic impulse, the need to see the physical proof before I allowed myself to believe the textual evidence. And there they were, dozens of them, selfies taken in mirrors I did not recognize, photos of dinner plates at restaurants where the reservation list was months long, photos of a woman Sierra, presumably wearing jewelry that cost more than my first car. She was beautiful in a way that looked expensive and high maintenance, the kind of beauty that demanded constant investment. Then I opened the banking app. It was already logged in, running in the background. My eyes scanned the transaction history, and the coldness in my hands spread to my chest. It was not just an affair. It was a financial hemorrhage. There was a transfer for $5,000 labeled simply as gift. There was a charge for 2 first-class tickets to the Maldives for next month, dates that Raymond had told me he would be away at a conference in Seattle. There were hotel bills for the Peninsula and the Langham. I scrolled back. 3 months, 6 months, a year. The total was staggering. He was not just cheating on me. He was siphoning our future to fund a fantasy. He was bleeding us dry. The anger did not come as a fire. It came as ice. It was a clean, sharp sensation, like inhaling winter air. I placed the phone gently on the marble countertop, aligning it perfectly with the edge. I walked to the bedroom, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor with a rhythmic precision. I pulled my suitcase from the top shelf of the closet. It was the large one, the one I used for long trips. I began to pack. I did not pack everything. I packed the essentials, my clothes, my laptop, the jewelry that I had bought for myself with my own earnings. I moved with efficiency, folding silk and wool, placing shoes in their dust bags. I was dissecting my life, cutting away the tissue that bound me to this apartment and this man. When the suitcase was zipped shut, I wheeled it out to the living room and stood it by the door. Then, I reached into my leather tote bag and pulled out the manila envelope I had been carrying around for 2 weeks. The divorce papers. I had consulted a lawyer weeks ago, purely on a gut feeling, a suspicion I could not articulate. I had hesitated to sign them. I had wanted to be wrong. I had wanted to be the paranoid wife who needed to trust her hard-working husband more. I placed the envelope on the kitchen island. Right next to his phone, it was a statement, a tombstone for the marriage. I was ready to leave. I reached for the handle of my suitcase, my fingers tightening around the leather grip. But then, my own phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a notification from Uber, expecting anything other than what I saw. It was an email from the billing department of Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Second notice overdue payment for Wright. Eleanor. My mother. I felt the air leave my lungs. The balance due was $42,000. It was the copay for her last surgery and the subsequent rehabilitation that insurance had refused to cover. I had told the hospital I would handle it. I had planned to use the savings from our joint investment account, the account Raymond handled. I quickly opened my banking app, checking the joint savings. 0. The balance was 0.00. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. He had drained it. He had drained the emergency fund I had built for my mother's care. Another notification popped up, this one from a legal firm in Wisconsin. Subject foreclosure proceedings. Lake Geneva property. The family home. The house my father had built. The only asset my mother had left. The place where she was supposed to recover. I had refinanced it last year to pay for the first round of treatments. A restructuring loan that Raymond had sworn he was managing. He had told me the payments were automatic. He had told me not to worry. The email stated that the restructuring had failed due to non-payment for 4 consecutive months. The bank was moving to seize the property. I dropped my hand, the phone sliding against my thigh. I could not leave. If I walked out that door right now, if I filed those papers tonight, the accounts would be frozen. The legal battle would take months, maybe a year. In that time, my mother would be kicked out of the hospital. The house in Lake Geneva would be sold at auction for pennies on the dollar. Raymond had leveraged everything. He had tied my hands not with rope, but with debt and bureaucratic red tape. I stood there, paralyzed in the center of the living room. The suitcase looked ridiculous now. It looked like a prop in a play I could no longer afford to act in. The doorbell rang. The sound was sharp, cutting through the silence like a gunshot. I jumped, my heart slamming against my ribs. Raymond. He must have realized he left his phone. He had come back up instead of driving away. Panic surged, hot and blinding. I looked at the suitcase. I looked at the divorce papers on the counter. I had to hide them. No. I had to face him. I had to scream at him. No. I had to be smart. The doorbell rang again, impatient, authoritative. I took a deep breath, smoothing the front of my dress. I was Autumn Wright. I was not a victim. I would open the door, and I would end this. I would tell him that I knew everything, and I would demand he fix the accounts before I destroyed him. I had the evidence. I had the leverage. I marched to the door, my hand trembling slightly as I reached for the lock. I composed my face into a mask of cold fury. I prepared the first sentence. I know about Sierra. I pulled the door open. I know exactly what you have been doing, I started to say. The words forming on my tongue, but the words died in my throat. It was not Raymond. Standing in the hallway was a stranger. He was tall, filling the frame of the doorway in a way that felt intrusive even though he had not yet stepped inside. He wore a black trench coat that was soaked through, the water beating on the fabric and dripping onto the pristine corridor carpet. His hair was dark, slicked back from the rain, and his face was hard angles and shadows. But it was his eyes that stopped me. They were gray, the color of the storm outside, and they held absolutely no warmth. He looked at me not like a man looking at a woman, but like an auditor looking at a set of books that did not balance. He was assessing me. He was calculating my value, my stability, my breaking point. Autumn Wright, he said. It was not a question. He spoke my name as if it were a verdict he was reading aloud. I gripped the edge of the door, my knuckles turning white. Who are you? Where is Raymond? The man did not blink. He did not smile. He did not offer an apology for the late hour or his dripping coat. Raymond is currently at the boutique watch store on Oak Street, he said. His voice was a low baritone, smooth and terrifyingly calm. The store owner opened it after hours specifically for him. I frowned, confusion warring with the adrenaline in my system. Why? The man tilted his head slightly, watching my reaction with predatory focus. He is buying a Patek Philippe, the man said. He is buying a gift for my wife. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. For a second, I could not process the syntax of his sentence. Buying a gift for my wife. Then it clicked. The pieces slammed together with violent force. Sierra Lane, the woman in the texts, the woman Raymond was funding. She was married. She was married to this man. I felt a crack run through the center of my chest. It was the sound of the last structural beam of my dignity giving way. I had thought I was the only victim here, the only one being fooled. But this man, this stranger with the eyes of a wolf, was standing in the wreckage with me. You are Sierra's husband, I whispered. It was a statement of horror. Sterling Blackwell, he introduced himself, though he offered no hand to shake. He simply stood there, radiating a kind of dark power that made the air in the hallway feel thin. He looked past me, his gaze landing on the suitcase standing in the middle of the living room. Then his eyes shifted to the kitchen island. Spotting the manila envelope, he was sharp. He missed nothing. He looked back at me, and for the first time, something flickered in his eyes. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. He took a step forward, crossing the threshold without waiting for an invitation. He brought the smell of rain and ozone and expensive cologne into my sanctuary. I see the bags, Sterling said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming a conspiratorial whisper that felt dangerous. I see the papers on the counter. He stopped 2 feet away from me. He was close enough that I could see the water droplets caught in his eyelashes. He was close enough that I should have been afraid, but I was too numb for fear. I was hollowed out. You know, he said. You saw the messages. I nodded, unable to speak. Sterling Blackwell looked at me, and he did not offer a tissue. He did not tell me it would be okay. He did not give me the platitudes that people give to women whose husbands are cheating on them. Instead, he placed a question on the table between us, sharp and gleaming like a knife. Are you planning to divorce him tonight? He asked. The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking because the answer mattered to him. He was asking because my answer was about to determine the rest of my life. I looked at him, and then I looked back at the notification on my phone regarding the foreclosure. I looked at the zero balance in my mind's eye. I started, but my voice failed. Sterling waited. He did not rush me. He stood there, wet and imposing, a dark angel in a designer coat, waiting to see if I was going to break or if I was going to fight. He took everything, I managed to say, the words scraping my throat. The accounts are empty, my mother, her hospital bills, the house in Lake Geneva. I know, Sterling said. The 2 words stopped me cold. You know, I asked. I know about the hospital bills, he said, reciting the facts with brutal efficiency. I know about the property in Lake Geneva. I know about the restructuring loan that failed. I know that if you file those papers tonight, Raymond will freeze what little is left, and you will lose the house before the first court hearing. I stared at him, horror washing over me. How do you know that? Because I make it my business to know the liabilities of the people involved in my life, he said. And unfortunately, Mrs. Wright, you are now involved in my life. He walked further into the room, moving with the confidence of a man who owned the building. He stopped at the kitchen island and looked down at Raymond's phone. Raymond thinks he is winning, Sterling said, looking at the device with distaste. He thinks he is a clever man playing a dangerous game. He has no idea that he is playing against the house. He turned back to face me. You want to leave him, Sterling said. You want to hurt him. You want justice. I want my life back, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. I want him to pay for what he did. Sterling watched me for a long moment. Then, he reached into the inner pocket of his wet coat. He pulled out a folded document and a checkbook. Leaving him tonight feels like justice, Sterling said softly. But it is not. It is a temper tantrum. It is a reaction. And reactions are expensive. Autumn. He used my first name again. It sounded intimate and terrifying. I have a proposition for you, he said. He placed the document on the counter, right next to my divorce papers. Then he uncapped a fountain pen. Do not divorce him tonight, Sterling said. Do not let him know that you know. Wipe your tears. Unpack your bag. Put that phone back exactly where you found it. Why would I do that? I asked, incredulous. He is with your wife right now. I know, Sterling said, his jaw tightening. And I need him to stay with her. I need them both to feel safe. I need them to feel invincible. He looked at me, his gray eyes locking onto mine. I need 90 days, he said. 3 months, not a day less, not a day more. He wrote something on the check, the sound of the pen scratching against the paper loud in the silent apartment. He tore it out and slid it across the marble surface toward me. I looked down. I blinked, sure that I was hallucinating. It was a cashier's check. It was made out to Autumn Wright. The amount was written in bold. Confident script, $150 million. I looked up at him, my mouth opening, but no sound coming out. This is not charity, Sterling said, and it is not hush money. It is a salary. He took a step closer to me, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. Be his wife for 3 more months, Sterling said. Smile at him, cook for him, let him believe he is the king of his little world, and in exchange, I will give you the power to destroy him completely. He paused, his eyes searching mine. Do not wait 3 months in hesitation, he said. I want exactly 3 months. No early departure, no late regrets. The rain hammered against the glass, louder now, a chaotic rhythm against the stillness inside. I looked at the check. I looked at the suitcase. I looked at the man who had walked out of the storm and offered me a weapon made of money and patience. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but the coldness was spreading again. The clean, sharp coldness. Why? I asked again. Because, Sterling Blackwell said, revenge is a dish best served on a schedule. So, Sierra Lane is your wife, I repeated, the words tasting like copper in my mouth. I looked at the man standing in my kitchen. This Sterling Blackwell, who seemed to absorb the light in the room rather than reflect it. And you are letting her sleep with my husband. Sterling did not flinch. He picked up the check he had placed on the counter, folded it with precise, deliberate movements, and tucked it back into his pocket. Correction, he said, his voice devoid of any emotional inflection. I am observing her sleep with your husband. There is a distinction. He walked over to the window, looking out at the rain-lashed darkness of Chicago. Sierra and I have an arrangement, he continued, speaking to the glass. It is a union of portfolios, not souls, a merger between 2 very old, very heavy names. The contract was simple. We maintain the public image of a power couple. We pose for the magazines, we attend the galas, and in private, we live separate lives. He turned back to face me, his gray eyes hardening. The only rule was discretion. The rule was silence. If she wanted to have an affair, she was to do it in the shadows, with people who do not matter, but she has chosen Raymond. He said my husband's name like it was a smudge of dirt on a pristine floor. And Raymond, Sterling added, is loud, he is reckless, and Sierra is flaunting him. She is taking him to places where my associates dine. She is leaving a paper trail that a blind forensic accountant could follow. She has broken the clause of discretion. I felt a surge of hysterical laughter bubbling in my chest, but I tamped it down. So you are the wronged husband. Is that it? You are heartbroken. I am inconvenienced, Sterling said flatly. Then divorce her, I snapped. I gestured to the door, to the city outside. If she broke the contract, leave her. Why are you here offering me a fortune to stay married to a cheater? Why don't you just end it? Sterling looked at me with a terrifying kind of pity. It was the look a wolf might give a sheep that tried to explain the concept of fairness. Because, Mrs. Right, in my world, you do not simply walk away when you are annoyed. You walk away when the market closes in your favor. He checked his watch. A piece of machinery that probably cost more than my entire education. To divorce Sierra tonight would be financial suicide. We are in the middle of a sensitive acquisition, a scandal now a messy. Public divorce involving infidelity and humiliating details would shake investor confidence. The stock would dip. The merger would collapse. I would lose billions, not millions. He stepped closer, invading my personal space again. I cannot move yet, he said. The board meeting is in 90 days. Until then, I need Sierra to feel secure. I need her to believe she is getting away with it. And to do that, I need Raymond to be available to her. If you divorce him tonight, if you blow this up, Raymond panics. He goes to ground. The affair becomes a scandal before I have secured my assets. He gestured toward the hallway. Get your coat. Excuse me? We cannot discuss the terms of your employment in this apartment, he said, glancing around with disdain, as if the walls themselves were listening. Raymond could return, or he could check the security cameras on his phone. We need a neutral ground. I hesitated. Every instinct in my body told me to run, to scream, to call the police. But then I thought of the foreclosure notice. I thought of my mother lying in a hospital bed, trusting me to handle the bills I could no longer pay. I grabbed my trench coat. We took his car. A black sedan with tinted windows that felt more like a vault than a vehicle. The driver did not speak. He did not even look at me in the rearview mirror. We drove in silence through the slick streets, heading toward the West Loop. We pulled up to a nondescript industrial building, the kind that housed tech startups or art galleries. There was no signage. Sterling led me to a private elevator in the back alley entrance. He pressed his thumb against a biometric scanner, and the doors slid open. The rooftop lounge was empty of patrons, yet fully staffed. It was a space of dark leather, reclaimed wood, and low, amber lighting. The rain drummed rhythmically on the retractable glass roof. As we walked in, a server in a crisp vest appeared from the shadows. The usual table, Mr. Blackwell, the server asked. He did not ask for a name. He did not ask for a reservation. In this room, Sterling Blackwell was not a customer. He was the gravity holding the place together. Yes, and bring the paperwork I sent over, Sterling commanded. We sat in a corner booth that offered a panoramic view of the skyline, the very city that felt like it was crushing me an hour ago. Now, looking at it from this height, beside this man, it felt like a game board. The server returned, not with drinks, but with a leather portfolio. He placed it in front of Sterling and vanished. Sterling opened the folder. He slid a thick document toward me, followed by the check he had shown me earlier. $150 million. Seeing it again, in this light, made it look even more surreal. The zeros seemed to stretch on forever. This is an escrow agreement, Sterling said, his tone shifting into pure business. The money is real. It is currently sitting in a frozen account that I have established in your name. You can see the routing number here. He pointed to a paragraph with his fountain pen. But you cannot touch it yet, he said. It unlocks on the 91st day, provided you meet the conditions. I looked at the contract. The legal language was dense, but the terms were clear. Condition 1, Sterling recited, watching my face. You do not file for divorce. You do not contact a lawyer other than the one I provide for you. You do not separate from Raymond Hughes. Condition 2, he continued. You play the part. You are the loving wife. You attend the dinners. You post the anniversary photos. You do not let a single crack show in the facade. Raymond must believe, with absolute certainty, that you are oblivious and that he is safe. Condition 3, he said, leaning in. You do not tell him. You do not hint that you know. If he suspects for even a second that you are aware of the affair, the deal is void. The money vanishes. I looked up from the paper. You want me to lie to him for 3 months. You want me to sleep in the bed of a man who is cheating on me and smile at him while he lies to my face. I want you to be an actress, Sterling corrected. I am paying you to perform a role, the role of the ignorant, happy wife. Why strictly 3 months? I asked. Why not just until the deal is done? Sterling's expression darkened. Because ambiguity breeds mistakes. Humans are procrastinators. Autumn, if I say wait a while, you will hesitate. You will falter. I need a deadline, a hard stop. He tapped the table with his index finger. Do not wait 3 months in a state of hesitation, he said. His voice low and intense. I want exactly 3 months, not a week early because you got angry, not a day late because you got sentimental. 90 days. On the 90th day, the acquisition closes. My assets are secure. And on that day, you and I will burn their world to the ground together. I stared at the check. It was enough money to solve every problem I had ever had. It was enough to buy the hospital my mother was in. And if I say no, I asked, if I walk out of here, go back to the apartment, and throw his clothes off the balcony. Sterling sat back, taking a sip of the sparkling water the server had silently placed before him. Then you lose, he said simply. I lose what my dignity. You lose your leverage, Sterling said, and you lose your home. My stomach dropped. What? Sterling didn't look at a notebook. He didn't check a phone. He recited the information from memory, looking me straight in the eye. Your mother, Eleanor Wright, is currently a patient at Northwestern. The outstanding balance is $42,380. The hospital has already flagged her file for discharge due to non-payment. They will move her to a state facility by Friday if the balance is not cleared. My hands shook under the table. Your family home in Lake Geneva, he continued, relentless. The mortgage was restructured 6 months ago. Raymond told you he secured a fixed rate. He did not. He secured a variable rate interest-only loan, and he has missed the last 4 payments. The bank sent the foreclosure notice to his office address. Not your home. He intercepted it. The sheriff's sale is scheduled for exactly 3 weeks from today. He paused, letting the information sink in. And finally, Sterling said, you have an appointment with a divorce attorney, Mr. Silas Vance, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Mr. Vance is a decent lawyer, but he asks for a $5,000 retainer. You currently have less than $400 in your personal checking account because Raymond transferred the rest to a crypto wallet 3 days ago. I felt naked, stripped bare. This man had dissected my life and laid the organs out on the table. How? I whispered. How do you know all of this? I told you, Sterling said. I do not enter a room without knowing where the exits are, and I do not make an offer without knowing the value of the asset. So I am an asset to you, I said bitterly. You are the key, Sterling said. Raymond thinks he is smart, but he is sloppy. He has used your name, Autumn. He has used your social security number as a guarantor on 3 of his shell companies. He has used your signature forged, of course, to co-sign the lease on the apartment where he meets my wife. I gasped. He what? He has made you an accomplice. Sterling said, if you divorce him today, if you go to court now, he will dump it all on you. He will claim you are the mastermind. He will claim the debts are yours. He has the paperwork to prove it, and he has the expensive lawyers to argue it. You will walk away with nothing but debt and a criminal record. He leaned forward, his voice softening, becoming almost hypnotic. But if you wait, Sterling said, if you wait 90 days, I can help you untangle it. I can help you gather the evidence to prove the fraud. I can help you document every forged signature, every stolen dime, but I need time, and I need you inside the house to do it. He pushed the pen toward me. Why me? I asked, my voice barely audible. You could hire a private investigator. You could hack his phone. Why do you need me to do this? Because you are the one person he does not suspect, Sterling said. And because you are the one person who has a reason not to shake when the knife is in your hand. He looked at the check again. $150 million, he said. Think of it as hazard pay, or think of it as the price of your mother's life. It does not matter. What matters is that if you sign this, you survive. If you don't, Raymond Hughes buries you. I looked at the pen. It was heavy. Black lacquer with gold trim. I thought of Raymond. I thought of the way he smiled when he lied. I thought of the business trips that were actually vacations with Sierra. I thought of him signing my name to a lease for his mistress, while my mother's medical bills went unpaid. The anger that had been cold in the apartment turned into something else. It turned into steel. I wasn't just signing a contract. I was signing a declaration of war. I picked up the pen. 90 days, I said. 90 days, Sterling confirmed. Not a second less. I pressed the nib to the paper. The ink flowed black and permanent. I signed my name, Autumn Wright. Sterling took the paper, blew on the ink to dry it, and closed the portfolio. He did not smile. He did not offer a handshake. Good, he said. Now, dry your eyes. We are going to drive you back. Raymond will be home in 20 minutes. You need to be in bed, pretending to be asleep, when he walks in. I stood up, my legs feeling surprisingly steady. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was a spy. I was a partner in a conspiracy worth $150 million. And one more thing, Sterling said as we walked toward the elevator. I turned back. He bought the watch, Sterling said. A Patek Philippe Nautilus, rose gold. He will probably hide it in his golf bag. Do not go looking for it. Let him think he is clever. I will, I said. And Autumn? Yes. Happy anniversary, Sterling said. The elevator doors closed, sealing the deal. The first day of my 90-day sentence began at 6:45 in the morning. The rain had stopped, leaving Chicago under a heavy gray lid of clouds that made the morning light look bruised. I was sitting on the sofa, a cup of cold coffee in my hands. When the lock tumbled, Raymond walked in. He looked exactly like a man who had spent the night in a frantic damage control meeting, which was the look he was going for. But beneath the staged exhaustion, I saw the distinct, relaxed micro-expressions of a man who had just been satisfied. His shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested it had been carefully balled up and then put back on, not worn for 24 hours. And then there was the smell. He leaned down to kiss me on the forehead, and I caught it. It was faint, buried under the aggressive scent of his own cologne, but it was there. Vanilla and expensive musk. Byredo. It was Sierra. I am so sorry, babe, Raymond said, his voice raspy. The partners' meeting went until 4. I just crashed on the leather sofa in my office. I didn't want to wake you up coming in that late. It was a line he had used a dozen times in the last year. Before last night, I had believed it. I had made him breakfast. I had sympathized with his workload. Now, I looked at him and saw a stranger. It is okay, I said. My voice sounded calm. It sounded like autumn. Did you get any sleep at all? Barely, he sighed, loosening his tie. But we closed the strategy for the next quarter. It is going to be huge for us. I stood up. I will make you some tea, chamomile. You look like you need to crash for real. You are an angel, he said, dropping his briefcase on the floor. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and watched the water boil. In my head, a single word was repeating like a ticker tape. Record, record, record. I was not making tea for my husband. I was maintaining the asset. Later that morning, after Raymond had passed out in the bedroom, a courier arrived at the concierge desk. The package was a plain brown box, addressed to me. Inside, there was no card. Just a phone, a matte black smartphone with no branding and a smartwatch. I took them into the bathroom and locked the door. The phone was already active. There was only one number saved in the contacts S.B. A message was waiting. Wear the watch. It monitors your heart rate and location. If your pulse spikes or you go off-grid, my security team moves in. It is not a gift. It is insurance. I put the watch on. It felt cold against my wrist, a constant reminder of the leash I had agreed to wear. But with the leash came resources. Using the secure browser on the new phone, I accessed the instructions Sterling had given me. He had opened a secondary channel for me to handle the immediate crisis my mother. I could not use the joint accounts. Raymond watched those like a hawk. But Sterling had set up a dummy consulting firm that had hired me for a freelance project. The signing bonus was $45,000. I transferred the funds directly to the hospital's billing department using a routed payment structure that listed the source as an insurance adjustment, not a personal payment. Raymond would never see it. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and watched the confirmation email come through. Paid in full. The foreclosure on the Lake Geneva house was next, but that was more complicated. I had to be careful. I set up a separate emergency fund in an offshore digital wallet Sterling had provided, moving small, undetectable amounts of my own freelance graphic design money into it, diverting it from the joint account where Raymond usually absorbed it. I was learning how to launder my own life. By the afternoon, Raymond was awake and in full performance mode. The guilt was manifesting as generosity. He came into the living room, freshly showered, smelling like his own soap now, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "I have been neglecting you," he murmured into my hair. "With the deal closing and the stress, I feel terrible. Let me take you out tonight. That new Italian place on the Riverwalk. Just us." "That sounds lovely," I said. I did not pull away. I leaned into him, measuring the tension in his arms. "I would like that." While he went to dress, I decided to do something I had never done in 5 years of marriage. I decided to audit him. He had left his briefcase in the hallway. Usually, I respected his privacy. I respected the attorney-client privilege he always cited. Even though he wasn't a lawyer, just a venture capitalist who liked to sound important. I opened the briefcase. It was mostly empty, which was the first red flag. A man coming from an all-night strategy meeting should have files, notes, decks. There was nothing but a breath mint tin and a single manila folder at the bottom. I opened the folder. It was a loan agreement, a commercial bridge loan for $2 million. My eyes scanned the collateral section, and my breath stopped. Collateral Residential Unit 40B, 110 North Wacker Drive, this apartment, my apartment. I had bought this place with my inheritance from my grandmother before I even met Raymond. It was in my name. He had no legal right to leverage it. I flipped to the signature page. There, on the line marked Guarantor, was my signature. It was Autumn Wright. The loop of the G was perfectly wide, just how I wrote it. The A had the sharp peak I always used. It was so perfect that for a second, I wondered if I had signed it in my sleep. But I checked the date. January 4th. I was in Wisconsin that day, visiting my mother. He had forged it. He had practiced my signature until he could replicate it flawlessly, and he had mortgaged the roof over my head to fund his sinking company, or perhaps to buy Sierra more jewelry. The rage was a physical thing, a hot spike in my chest. I wanted to march into the bedroom and throw the paper in his face. I wanted to scream. Reaction is expensive. Sterling's voice echoed in my head. I took out the secure phone. I photographed every page of the document. I focused on the signature. I focused on the notary stamp, a notary I recognized as one of Raymond's golf buddies. I uploaded the images to the encrypted cloud server Sterling had given me access to. Then I checked the metadata to ensure the timestamp was accurate. I closed the folder. I put it back exactly as I found it. I had just found the nail for his coffin. I wasn't going to use it to scratch him. I was going to save it to seal the lid. Dinner was a surreal exercise in dissociation. We sat at a prime table by the window. The restaurant was crowded, the air filled with the clinking of silverware and the hum of expensive conversation. Raymond ordered a bottle of Barolo that cost $400. "To us," he said, raising his glass. "To weathering the storms." "To us," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. He reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was damp. I know I have been distant, he said, looking me in the eyes with a sincerity that was almost impressive. But once this deal goes through, everything is going to change. We can take that trip to Italy you always wanted. We can renovate the Lake Geneva house. He was lying about the house he was letting the bank seize. He was lying about the money he didn't have. I am not going anywhere. Ray, I said softly. He squeezed my hand, and I realized something that made the hair on my arms stand up. He wasn't squeezing my hand out of affection. He was holding on for dear life. He was terrified. The way his eyes darted around the room, checking who was watching us, checking if anyone important saw him playing the role of the stable family man. He needed me. He needed this dinner. He needed the photo he asked the waiter to take of us, which he immediately posted to Instagram with the caption, "My Rock." Sterling was right. Raymond was building a defense. He was creating a timeline of domestic bliss to counter whatever storm he knew was coming. But he didn't know the storm was sitting across from him, eating burrata. My phone, the real one, the one Raymond knew about, buzzed on the table. It was a notification from Instagram. "Sierra Lane liked your post." I looked at the screen. She had liked the photo of me and Raymond within 30 seconds of it going up. It was a power move. She was telling me she was watching. She was marking her territory even from a distance. "Who is it?" Raymond asked, a flicker of panic in his eyes. "Just a work notification," I said, swiping the screen dark. "Nothing important. We got home just after 11. Raymond was tipsy and amorous, emboldened by his own performance. I managed to deflect him by claiming a migraine, playing the frail, tired wife card. He accepted it easily, almost relieved. He didn't actually want me. He just wanted to know he had me. He went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. I stayed in the living room to turn off the lights. I walked over to the sideboard where we kept the mail and keys. I stopped. Before we left for dinner, I had placed the spare key fob in the top drawer. I had aligned it perfectly with the edge of a stack of unopened envelopes. It was a habit I had picked up from reading too many mystery novels. A silly little test of my own paranoia. The drawer was closed, but it wasn't flush. It was open by maybe 2 millimeters, a tiny dark gap that shouldn't have been there. I froze. I looked at the keypad for the alarm system by the door. The green light was steady. The alarm hadn't been triggered, but someone had been in here. While we were eating pasta and playing Happy Family, someone had entered the apartment. They hadn't forced the door. They had the code, or a key. I pulled the drawer open gently. The spare fob was there. But the envelopes were shuffled. The order was wrong. I looked toward the bathroom where the water was running. Raymond was humming to himself. Was it him? Did he come back up for something while I was waiting by the elevator? We were together the whole time. "Sterling," I looked down at the smart watch on my wrist. It pulsed quietly. Or was it Sierra? A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning swept over me. I wasn't just living with a liar. I was living in a crime scene that hadn't been taped off yet. I closed the drawer, pushing it until it clicked shut. I walked into the bedroom, undressed, and slid into bed beside the man who had sold my home out from under me. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, I kept my eyes open. I listened to Raymond's breathing even out as he fell asleep. I lay there, counting the seconds, knowing that somewhere in the city, Sterling Blackwell was likely doing the same. We were not just walking on thin ice, we were dancing on it, and I had 89 days left to keep from falling through. My education began in a room that did not officially exist. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. During the hours, Raymond believed I was at my Pilates class or volunteering at the Art Institute. I took a cab to a gray stone building in the financial district. There was no name on the door, just a suite number that didn't appear on the building's directory. Inside, the frosted glass bore the logo of Northbridge Meridian Group. If you Googled it, you would find a generic landing page filled with stock photos of handshakes and skylines. But no address, no phone number, and no employee list. It was a ghost firm. And inside, Sterling Blackwell was teaching me how to hunt ghosts. "Look at the accounts receivable," Sterling said. He was standing behind me, leaning over the mahogany conference table. his finger tracing a line on the spreadsheet I had been staring at for 2 hours. "Tell me what you see." I squinted at the numbers. 3 weeks ago, this would have looked like static. Now, it was starting to look like a map. "The revenue spikes every quarter right before the reporting deadline," I said, tracing the pattern. "But the cash flow doesn't match. He is booking sales that haven't happened yet." "He is channel stuffing," Sterling corrected. "He is shipping product to distributors who haven't ordered it, counting it as a sale to boost the numbers for the bank, and then accepting the returns in the next quarter. It is the oldest trick in the book." He pulled up another document on the screen. It was a credit card statement for the corporate account. "And look at the marketing expenses," he said. I scanned the list. Consulting fees, brand development, client retention. "These are vague," I noted. "They are lies," Sterling said. He clicked on a line item labeled Strategic Visual Consulting for $25,000. "This vendor is a shell company registered in Delaware. The registered agent is a lawyer who also happens to represent Sierra's modeling agency." I felt the familiar burn of humiliation, but it was cooler now. It was fuel. Raymond wasn't just buying Sierra dinner. He was laundering company money to pay her a salary for doing absolutely nothing. He was stealing from his investors and, by extension, the banks to keep his mistress in Prada. "He is breaching his debt covenants," I said, using the term I had learned on day 4. "Exactly," Sterling said, walking around to the other side of the table. He looked satisfied, like a professor whose student had finally grasped a complex theorem. "The bank requires him to maintain a certain debt-to-earnings ratio. He is faking the earnings to keep the ratio healthy. If the bank finds out, they can call the loan immediately. He would be bankrupt in 24 hours. "So that is the plan?" I asked. "We tell the bank." "No," Sterling said. "We become the bank." He projected a new slide onto the wall. It was a complex web of financial entities. "For the last month, I have been using 3 different holding companies to quietly buy up Raymond's debt," Sterling explained. His voice was calm, terrifyingly casual. "The secondary debt market is a beautiful place. Autumn, when a bank gets nervous about a loan, they will sell it for 90 cents on the dollar just to get it off their books. I have been buying." He pointed to the center of the web. "Hughes Capital Partners. By day 90, Sterling said, I will own 80% of his company's debt. I will be the senior secured creditor, and when the clock strikes midnight, I will not ask for a payment plan. I will trigger the default clause." He looked at me, his gray eyes gleaming. "I will own him. I will own the office chair he sits in. I will own the intellectual property. I will own the lease on the apartment he thinks he is so clever for hiding." It was a masterclass in destruction. It wasn't emotional. It was structural. But then Sterling slid a piece of paper across the table. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a printed email. "But you need to see this," he said. "Because Raymond is not just a thief. He is a survivor, and survivors need scapegoats." I picked up the paper. It was an internal email from Raymond to his personal lawyer. The subject line was Contingency Strategy, Risk Mitigation. I read the body of the email, and the blood drained from my face. "In the event of a liquidity crisis, we need to position the unauthorized withdrawals as external interference. As discussed, Autumn has access to the signatory tokens. We can frame the narrative that she was advising on these transfers without board approval, effectively piercing the corporate veil. If the ship goes down, she needs to be the one steering." I dropped the paper. "He is going to frame me," I whispered. "He is going to say I stole the money he spent on her. He is setting up a narrative," Sterling said. "He is planting the seeds now. The forged signature on the apartment lease. That wasn't just to get the loan. It was to establish a pattern of you being involved in the business." I felt sick. I had been sleeping next to him. I had been making him coffee. And all the while, he was drafting the blueprint for my prison sentence. "This is why you are here," Sterling said, his voice hard. "If you were just a grieving wife on the outside, you would be defenseless. But now you know, And because you know, we can block him. How? We create a paper trail of our own, Sterling said. But to do that, we need to verify an asset he has been hiding, something he hasn't digitized yet. He checked his watch. Go home and pack a bag, he said. Tell Raymond you are going to a wellness retreat in Arizona for the weekend. He will be relieved to have you out of the house so he can spend the weekend with Sierra. Where are we going? I asked. Sedona, Sterling said. We have a house to inspect. The flight to Arizona was on a private jet that belonged to a company I had never heard of. Sterling was cautious. He didn't want our names on any commercial passenger manifest. Sedona was a different planet compared to Chicago. The air was dry and smelled of sage and heated dust. The red rocks rose up against the blue sky like ancient monuments. It was beautiful. But we weren't there for the view. We rented a nondescript SUV. Sterling drove. He wore aviator sunglasses and a t-shirt that fit him a little too well, looking less like a corporate raider and more like a man who could handle himself in a fight. Raymond bought a property out here 6 months ago, Sterling said as we wound our way up a canyon road. He listed it as a corporate training retreat on the books, tax write-off, but there have been no training sessions. Let me guess, I said, watching the red dust kick up behind us. Sierra likes hiking. Sierra hates hiking, Sterling said dryly, but she likes isolation. She likes places where she can tan without paparazzi lenses. We pulled off the main road onto a gravel track marked Private Drive. Sterling parked the car a quarter-mile down, hidden behind a cluster of juniper trees. We walk from here, he said. We hiked up a ridge that overlooked the property. It was a modern structure, all glass and rusted steel, cantilevered over the edge of the canyon. It was stunning, and it was empty. He paid $3 million for this, Sterling said, raising a pair of binoculars. Money he took from the employee pension fund. He handed me the binoculars. Look at the patio. I adjusted the focus. On the patio, there was a stack of boxes. I zoomed in. They were crates of high-end audio equipment. He is building a studio, I realized. For the podcast, he keeps talking about starting. No, Sterling said, for Sierra's music career that she thinks is going to launch next year. He is building her a sanctuary. We made our way down the ridge toward the house. Sterling wanted to get the serial numbers off the construction permits posted on the back gate, proof that Raymond was the one directing the work personally. Not a corporate manager. The ground was loose, a mix of shale and dry earth. I was wearing hiking boots. But I wasn't used to the terrain. I was focused on the house, on the anger that was simmering in my gut, distracting me from where I put my feet. The ground beneath my right boot gave way. It happened fast. The shale slid, and I slipped, sliding toward a drop-off that fell about 20 feet into a dry creek bed. I gasped, my hands scrabbling for purchase on the loose rock. Autumn. A hand clamped around my forearm. It was iron hard. Sterling had moved with a speed that defied logic. He dug his heels in, anchoring himself, and hauled me back up onto the solid path with a single, powerful motion. I crashed into his chest. For a second, the world stopped. The smell of sage was replaced by the scent of him-clean soap, expensive leather, and the heat of adrenaline. I could feel his heart beating against my ribs, steady and strong. My hands were clutching his biceps, and his hands were gripping my waist and my shoulder. Holding me steady, I looked up. His sunglasses had slid down slightly, and I saw his eyes. They weren't cold gray anymore. They were dark, dilated, and intensely focused on me. He didn't let go immediately. He held me there, checking for injury, his gaze sweeping over my face. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was rougher than usual. "No," I breathed, my heart hammering against the smart watch on my wrist. I slipped. "You were not watching the ground," he said. He sounded angry, but his hands were gentle as he steadied me. "You were looking at the house. Never look at the target until your footing is secure." It was a lesson. Everything with him was a lesson. But the way he held me felt less like a teacher and more like a man who had just realized he didn't want to drop me. I stepped back, breaking the contact. The air between us felt suddenly charged, thick with something that wasn't part of the contract. "I am fine," I said, brushing the red dust off my jeans. "Thank you." Sterling adjusted his sunglasses, the mask sliding back into place. "Be careful. If you break your neck, I lose my insider." It was a cruel thing to say, but I heard the lack of conviction in it. He turned and started walking toward the gate, but he kept his pace slower this time, staying just a half step ahead of me. Creating a shield between me and the edge, I followed him, my pulse still racing. Contract. I told myself firmly, this is a business transaction. He is using you to save his merger. You are using him to save your mother. But as I watched his broad shoulders move under the desert sun, I felt a treacherous tightening in my chest. It wasn't love. It couldn't be love. It was trauma bonding. It was the thrill of the heist. Or maybe it was the fact that for the first time in 10 years, a man had looked at me and seen something worth catching. We got the photos of the permits. We found the evidence that Raymond had signed for the deliveries personally. We had another nail for the coffin. On the flight back to Chicago, the cabin was dark. Sterling was working on his laptop, the blue light illuminating his sharp features. I stared out the window at the clouds below. "Why didn't you marry for love?" I asked quietly, breaking the silence. Sterling didn't look up from the screen. "Love is a volatile variable. It compromises judgment. Marrying Sierra was a strategic alliance. It was safe. And look how that turned out," I said. He stopped typing. He turned his head slowly to look at me. "Fair point," he said softly. "I married for love." I said, "I loved Raymond so much I couldn't see straight. And now he's trying to frame me for a felony." Sterling closed his laptop. "Then we are both learning," he said, "that relying on the heart is a liability." "Is it?" I asked. He looked at me, and for a moment, the air in the cabin felt thin again, just like it had on the cliff edge. "Get some sleep. Autumn," he said, turning away. "Tomorrow is Monday. Raymond will be back. The play continues." I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I thought about the grip of his hand on my arm. I thought about the timeline. 50 days left. I was becoming a weapon, sharpened by facts and fueled by money. But as the plane descended toward the city lights, I realized the most dangerous part of this plan wasn't Raymond. It wasn't the fraud. It was the man sitting across the aisle, who was teaching me how to survive, and in doing so, was making me feel dangerously alive. The charity gala in Dallas was held in a ballroom that smelled of lilies, old money, and desperate ambition. Raymond had insisted we attend. He called it a networking necessity, claiming that Texas capital was the only thing fluid enough to bridge the gap until his company's next quarter. I knew the truth. He needed a prop. He needed to walk into a room full of conservative, family values investors with a wife on his arm who looked adoring, stable, and blissfully unaware. I wore midnight blue velvet. It was high-necked, long-sleeved, and backless a dress that said I had nothing to prove and everything to hide. Raymond wore a tuxedo that was a fraction too tight across the shoulders, a physical manifestation of the stress he was trying to sweat out. "Smile, darling," Raymond whispered, his hand gripping my elbow hard enough to leave a bruise. The man at 2 o'clock is deeply religious. He invests in people, not just spreadsheets. He needs to see the partnership. I am smiling. "Raymond," I said, keeping my lips curved in a perfect, porcelain expression. "I am the picture of devotion." I wasn't lying. I was devoted. I was devoted to the 90-day timeline ticking away on the encrypted watch hidden beneath my velvet sleeve. We circulated the room like sharks in a tank of goldfish. I played my part flawlessly. I laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I touched Raymond's arm when he made a point. I acted like the supportive anchor to his visionary genius. And every time I did, I saw the tension ebb from his shoulders. He was relaxing. He was beginning to believe his own con. And then, the air in the room shifted. It wasn't a sound. It was a change in the gravitational pull of the party. Heads turned toward the grand staircase. Sierra Lane had arrived. She did not walk. She descended. She was wearing a dress made of gold sequins that caught every photon of light in the room, slashed down to her navel and up to her hip. It was a dress designed to start wars. But she wasn't with Sterling. She wasn't even alone. She was clinging to the arm of a man I recognized from the tabloids, a 60-year-old real estate tycoon known for his messy divorces and generous settlements. I felt Raymond stiffen beside me, his hand on my waist turned into a claw. "What is she doing here?" he hissed, his voice barely audible over the string quartet. "She was invited." "I assume," I said coolly. "She is a person of influence, isn't she?" Sierra spotted us immediately. Of course she did. She had probably mapped our location before she even stepped out of the car. She steered her new sponsor directly toward us, cutting through the crowd with the confidence of a woman who knows she is the most dangerous thing in the room. "Raymond," she cooed, her voice pitched just loud enough to draw attention. "And Autumn, how quaint to see you two together." She stopped in front of us, effectively blocking our path. Up close, her makeup was flawless, a mask of contour and highlight, but her eyes were frantic. She looked at Raymond with a mixture of possessiveness and challenge, then flicked her gaze to me, waiting for the flinch. She wanted me to glare. She wanted me to snatch my hand away from Raymond. She wanted a scene that would prove she mattered more than his reputation. I did not give it to her. "Hello, Sierra," I said, my voice warm and steady. "That dress is brave. You look stunning." Sierra blinked. The compliment hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth. But the script she had rehearsed, the one where I was the bitter, frumpy wife, dissolved. "I thank you," she stammered, then recovered, turning her attention to Raymond. "I was just telling Arthur here how much I admire your firm's risk tolerance." She emphasized the word risk, while dragging a manicured nail down the lapel of her date's jacket. It was a blatant provocation. She was flaunting her ability to be with other men, trying to make Raymond jealous right in front of his wife. Raymond looked like he was about to vomit. He was trapped. He couldn't show jealousy without exposing the affair to me. He couldn't ignore her without enraging her. "It is a volatile market," Raymond managed to say, his voice tight. "We manage. Some assets are harder to hold on to than others," Sierra said, her eyes boring into his. "Don't you think, Autumn?" She pivoted the weapon toward me. I took a sip of my champagne. "I think that if an asset is too volatile, a smart investor liquidates it before it becomes a liability. Don't you agree?" I smiled at her. It was a genuine smile. Sierra's face hardened. She wasn't getting the reaction she wanted. She wasn't winning. For a woman like Sierra, the affair wasn't about love, it was about conquest. She needed to feel like she was stealing him. But if I didn't care, if I was happily chatting away, then she wasn't stealing anything. She was just the other woman in a cheap drama that I refused to watch. "Enjoy the evening," I said, dismissing her. "Come along, Ray. The religious investor is waving at us." I steered Raymond away. As we walked off, I glanced back. Sierra was standing there, abandoned in her gold dress, her face twisted in pure, unadulterated fury. Half an hour later, I escaped to the powder room. The marble sanctuary was quiet, save for the sound of running water. Standing by the sinks, aggressively scrubbing a stain out of the hem of the gold dress, was a young woman. She couldn't have been more than 22. She looked exhausted, her eyes rimmed with red, her messy bun held together by sheer willpower. She was holding Sierra's clutch bag under her arm like a football. It was Sierra's assistant. I had seen her in the background of Sierra's social media stories, usually carrying 5 coffee cups or being yelled at for bad lighting. I walked over to the adjacent sink and began to wash my hands. "Club soda works better for red wine," I said softly. The girl jumped, nearly dropping the dress. "Oh God, I am sorry. She spilled it on herself when she turned around too fast, and she told me if I don't get it out in 5 minutes, I am fired." "You are not going to get fired," I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out a Tide pen. Here, use this. The girl took it, her hands shaking. Thank you. She is in a mood tonight. I noticed, I said. She seems under a lot of pressure. The girl let out a bitter laugh before she could stop herself. Pressure. She is a ticking time bomb. She has been screaming at her phone all day. I turned to face her. I dropped the socialite mask and put on the face of a concerned maternal figure. It must be hard, I said, cleaning up her messes while she gets all the credit. The girl looked at me. She saw someone who wasn't looking through her. Someone who actually saw the human being holding the clutch. You have no idea, she whispered. She treats everyone like garbage. And now with this whole ultimatum thing. She stopped, realizing she had said too much. Her eyes widened. I didn't push. I didn't ask, what ultimatum? I just nodded sympathetically. Ultimatums are stressful. They make people act crazy. The girl looked down at the sink. She was tired. She was underpaid. And she was holding the secrets of a woman she hated. She recorded him, the girl said. The words came out in a rush, a purge of anxiety. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my hands steady under the water. Recorded who? I asked casually. Your husband, she said. She looked at me with pity. I am sorry. I shouldn't tell you. But she has a video, from the hotel in Cabo. She says if he doesn't leave you and announce it publicly within 10 days, she's going to leak it to TMZ and send it to his board of directors. 10 days. The timeline just shrank. Sterling needed 90 days. Sierra was giving us 10. 10 days, I repeated. When does the clock run out? Next Friday, the girl said. She has it scheduled to auto-upload if she doesn't input a code. She is crazy. Mrs. Wright. She wants to burn it all down. I dried my hands on a linen towel. I reached into my bag and pulled out a business card. It wasn't my real card. It was a card for a headhunter at a top PR firm in New York, a contact Sterling had given me for assets. You seem very organized, I said, handing her the card. And you are discreet. If you ever want to leave Sierra and work for a firm that pays overtime and respects its employees, call this number. Tell them Autumn sent you. The girl took the card like it was a golden ticket. Thank you, she breathed. Don't tell her we spoke, I said. And good luck with the stain. I walked out of the bathroom. My pulse was racing, but my mind was ice cold. Sierra was accelerating the game. She was trying to force a checkmate. She didn't realize she was playing against a grandmaster. The drive back to the hotel was silent for the first 10 minutes. The limousine felt like a vacuum chamber. Raymond was vibrating with pent-up energy. He had spent the night watching his wife charm his investors and his mistress threaten his existence, and the dissonance was tearing him apart. He cracked. You were very friendly with her, Raymond said. His voice was laced with accusation, which was rich coming from him. With whom? I asked, scrolling through my phone. Sierra, he snapped. You know exactly who. You stood there and complimented her dress. You joked with her. I was being polite. Raymond, I said, not looking up. It is a charity gala. We are civilized people. You didn't seem bothered by her, Raymond pressed. He turned in his seat to face me, his face illuminated by the passing streetlights. She was flirting with me. Autumn, right in front of you. She was practically hanging off me. She is a tactile person, I said, shrugging. And she had a date. Why would I be bothered? Because you are my wife, Raymond yelled. The sound was shocking in the quiet car. You are supposed to care. You are supposed to be jealous. Why aren't you jealous? Do you not love me anymore? He was unraveling. The guilt was eating him alive, but instead of confessing, he was projecting. He needed me to be the jealous, hysterical wife so he could feel like the desired prize. He needed me to fight for him so he could feel less like a cheater and more like a man caught in a tragic romance. I put my phone down. I turned to look at him. Raymond, I said calmly, for the last 2 years, you have told me I am suffocating you. You told me I was too needy. You told me you needed space to focus on the company. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. I am giving you what you asked for, I said. I am giving you space. I am trusting you. I am being the secure, independent partner you said you wanted. And now you are angry. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I had used his own gaslighting against him. I had trapped him in his own logic. He faltered. It feels like you don't care. I care about us, I lied. I care about our future. That is why I didn't make a scene. A scene would have hurt the stock price. Raymond, I was protecting your investment. He slumped back in the seat, defeated. He couldn't argue with that. I was the perfect corporate wife. I was doing exactly what was best for business. You are right, he muttered, rubbing his temples. I am sorry. It is just the stress, the deal. I know, I said, reaching out to pat his knee. It felt like patting a reptile. Just 10 more days until the quarter closes. Right? Then everything settles down. He flinched at the number. 10 days. Yeah, he whispered. 10 days. We arrived at the hotel. Raymond went straight to the bar. I went to the bedroom. I took out the burner phone. I sent a text to Sterling. The asset has a deadline. Sierra has a video. She is threatening to release it in 10 days if he doesn't leave me. She wants a public declaration. I waited. The response came 3 minutes later. Panic causes errors. Sierra is pushing too hard. She is desperate. Raymond is weak. He will not leave you. He cannot afford the divorce. He will try to buy her off. A second message followed. Let the pressure cook him. He will make a mistake. Stay the course. Hold your position. I deleted the messages. I walked to the window and looked out at the Dallas skyline. 10 days. Sierra thought she was holding a gun to Raymond's head. She didn't know that Sterling and I were the ones supplying the bullets. Raymond was going to try to silence her. He was going to use money he didn't have to buy a silence that couldn't be bought. And when he moved that money, we would catch him. I turned off the light. The game had just moved from a marathon to a sprint. The financial hemorrhage began on a Tuesday morning, exactly 4 days after the gala. It was not a trickle. It was an arterial spray. I sat in the secure office at Northbridge Meridian Group, watching the monitors as if I were watching a car crash in slow motion. Sterling stood behind me, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. He is moving fast, Sterling said quietly. On the screen, a transfer of $250,000 was being routed from Raymond's company, Hughes Capital, to a vendor listed as Orion Creative Solutions. Orion Creative Solutions, I read aloud. Let me guess, it is a shell company. Registered 3 days ago, Sterling confirmed. The address is a P.O. box in Nevada. The signatory is Sierra Lane's cousin. Raymond is not even trying to hide it anymore. He is panicking. Sierra gave him 10 days to leave you, or she releases the tape. He thinks that if he gives her enough money, she will extend the deadline. He is buying time with stolen money, I said. He is embezzling, Sterling corrected, and he is doing it through a marketing services contract. Look at the invoice description. I squinted at the digital document. For expedited brand repositioning and crisis management consultation. It was almost funny. He was paying his mistress to manage the crisis that she herself had created. This is it, isn't it? I asked, looking up at Sterling. This is the smoking gun. This is better than a smoking gun, Sterling said, leaning in to tap the screen. This is a confession. He is bypassing the CFO's approval limit by breaking the payments into chunks of exactly $49,000. That is structured fraud. No lawyer in Chicago can talk his way out of this. I felt a strange cocktail of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also a deep, sickening realization of just how little my husband respected the intelligence of the people around him. He thought he was invisible. We have the crime, Sterling said. Now we need to lock the liability. You need to go home and get his signature on the solvency affidavit. I nodded. This was the trap we had prepared. A document that looked like a standard update for our personal liability insurance, something Raymond usually signed without reading but was actually a declaration that he, and only he, had full knowledge and control of all business financial decisions made in the last quarter. He will sign it, I said. He signs anything I put in front of him if I tell him it saves us money on taxes. I went home early. I cooked a roast chicken, his favorite comfort food. I set the table. I created the perfect atmosphere of domestic safety. When Raymond walked in, he looked like a man who had been running from a pack of wolves. His skin was gray, his eyes bloodshot. He dropped his briefcase and went straight for the scotch. "Rough day?" I asked, pouring him a glass. "You have no idea," he muttered, downing half the liquid in one swallow. "The market is insane. Sharks everywhere." He was referring to the debt. Earlier that afternoon, Sterling had triggered a rumor in the market, a whisper that a hostile entity was buying up the Hughes Capital debt. Raymond didn't know it was Sterling. He just knew that someone was circling his company, buying up the notes, getting ready to squeeze. "I am sorry, Ray," I said soothingly. "But hey, at least we handled the home insurance. I just need you to sign this update form. The broker said if we get it in by 5 o'clock tomorrow, our premium drops by 12%. I slid the paper across the kitchen island. Raymond barely looked at it. He was checking his phone, likely waiting for a text from Sierra confirming receipt of the $250,000. "Just here," he asked, pointing to the line I had highlighted. "And here," I said. "It just confirms you are the primary decision-maker for the assets." "Standard stuff." He scribbled his signature, Raymond Hughes. I watched the ink dry. With that signature, he had just legally blocked himself from ever claiming that I, or his CFO, or anyone else, had authorized the fraudulent transfers without his knowledge. He had just claimed the captain's chair on the sinking ship. "Thanks, darling," I said, slipping the document into my folder. "I will scan it in the morning," but the night did not stay calm. Raymond's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his face went white. He stood up, pacing the living room. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Nothing," he snapped. "Just work. A complication." He wasn't telling me the truth. I knew what the text was because I had access to the mirror of his phone on my secure device. It was from Sierra. "The money is nice, Ray, but it is not a divorce decree. You have 4 days left. Don't make me post the video." He was cornered. The money hadn't bought him silence. It had only bought him a reminder. Then, he did something that chilled me to the bone. He stopped pacing. He looked at me. And for the first time, I saw him not as a husband or a cheater, but as an enemy. He looked at me with calculation. "Autumn," he said, his voice dropping to a register that was supposed to sound concerned but sounded predatory. "Do you remember that email you sent me last week about the design consultants?" I froze. "What email?" "The one where you suggested we use Orion Solutions," he said, watching my face closely. "You sent me the link. You said they were good." I stared at him. I had never heard of Orion Solutions until this morning in Sterling's office. "I don't recall that," I said slowly. "You must have forgotten," Raymond said, a tight smile fixing onto his face. "You sent it from your personal email. I forwarded it to accounting. I just wanted to make sure you remembered. In case anyone asks. It was your recommendation, right?" He was gaslighting me, in real time. He was trying to plant a memory. "Ray, I have no idea what you are talking about," I said firmly. He stepped closer, his eyes cold. "You have been under a lot of stress lately. Autumn, with your mom, the money issues. You get confused. Remember when you lost your keys last week? You are forgetful." He was setting the stage. He was building the narrative that I was mentally fragile, that I was involved, that I was the one pulling the strings. "I am tired," I said, standing up. "I am going to bed." I locked the bedroom door that night. The next morning, while Raymond was in the shower, I opened his laptop. I had 3 minutes. I went to his sent folder. Nothing. I went to the drafts. Nothing. Then I checked the deleted items. There it was. It was an email thread. But it wasn't from me. It was a fake chain he had fabricated. He had created a Gmail account that looked like mine, Autumn. Right, design@gmail.com, and he had been sending emails back and forth to himself, creating a fake conversation. From Autumn Wright to Raymond Hughes, subject Orion payment Ray. Please make sure the payment to Orion goes through today. They are necessary for the rebrand. I know it is expensive, but we need to accommodate their fee structure if we want the quality work. I read the email again, and then I smiled. A cold, sharp smile. He had made a mistake. A tiny, human, fatal mistake. Raymond had typed the word accommodate, but he had spelled it accommodate. I stared at the screen. I had been an editor for the university paper. I was obsessive about spelling. I had corrected Raymond's spelling of that specific word on his MBA application essays 10 years ago. I never, ever misspelled accommodate, but Raymond did. He did it consistently. He did it in his texts. He did it in his reports. He had written the email himself, posing as me, and his own bad habits had incriminated him. I took a photo of the screen. I took a photo of the source code header showing the IP address of the sender was the same as the receiver, his laptop. Sitting right here in our apartment, I closed the laptop exactly as the water in the shower stopped. I had him, but Raymond wasn't done. That evening, the psychological violence escalated. He came home with flowers huge, expensive white lilies that smelled like a funeral. "For you," he said, handing them to me. Then he grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to break, but hard enough to hold. "I need you to sign something else," he said. "What is it?" I asked, trying to pull my hand back. "Just a transfer authorization," he said. "For the trust, since you are the beneficiary, the bank needs your sign-off to move some liquidity around, to pay off the house in Lake Geneva." He was lying. He was trying to get me to sign the authorization for the stolen money. He wanted my fingerprints on the weapon. "I can't sign anything without reading it." "Ray," I said. "Why are you being difficult?" he snapped, his face contorting. "I am trying to save your mother's house. I am trying to fix the mess you made with your spending." "My spending?" I asked, incredulous. "I haven't bought a dress in 2 years." "You are draining me, Autumn," he shouted, throwing the flowers onto the counter. The vase shattered. Water and glass exploded across the marble. "The medical bills. The house. You are bleeding me dry. And now you won't even sign a simple paper to help me fix it." He was projecting so hard, he was practically vibrating. He was the one bleeding the company. He was the one spending millions on a mistress, but he needed to believe it was my fault. He needed to make me the villain so he could justify what he was about to do to me. I looked at the shattered glass. "I will read it in the morning," I said quietly. "I am not signing anything tonight." He glared at me, his chest heaving. For a second, I thought he might hit me. I saw the impulse twitch in his right hand, but he didn't. He was a coward. He was a white-collar criminal, not a street fighter. He punched walls, not faces. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the frames on the wall rattled. I picked up my burner phone. My hands were shaking, but my text was steady. He is trying to force me to sign the transfer orders. He is violent. He is breaking things. Sterling called me immediately. "Get out," he said. "Go to a hotel." "No," I said. "If I leave now, he knows I have broken the pattern. He knows I'm scared. I have to stay. I have to play the confused, submissive wife one last time." "Autumn," Sterling's voice was low. Warning. "Do not be a hero." "I am not a hero," I said. "I am a woman who wants her $150 million. What is the next move?" Sterling paused. I could hear him thinking, calculating the risk. "The debt acquisition is complete," Sterling said. "I own 92% of his obligations as of an hour ago. We are ready to pull the trigger." "He is desperate," I said. "He needs a lifeline." "Then I will give him one," Sterling said. "Tomorrow morning, he will receive a call from a private equity firm, my firm. But he won't know that. We are going to offer him a capital rescue package. A cash injection to save the company and pay off the hostile debt buyer. He will take it, I said. He will jump at it. Exactly, Sterling said. I am inviting him to a meeting at the Four Seasons at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I want you to be there. Me, why? Because the rescue package requires spousal consent, Sterling said. He will bring you because he thinks you are his puppet. He thinks you will sign whatever he puts in front of you. He doesn't know that you are the one who is going to close the trap. A meeting, I repeated. It is not just a meeting, Autumn, Sterling said darkly. It is a deposition. I will have cameras. I will have a stenographer, and I will have the papers you found on his laptop. Okay, I said. I will get him there. Be careful tonight, Sterling added. A trapped animal bites. I hung up. I cleaned up the glass. I threw the broken lilies in the trash. I went into the bedroom. Raymond was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered. He looked pathetic. I am sorry, he wept. The tears were real, but they were tears of self-pity. I am just so stressed. Autumn, I love you. You know I love you, right? It was the cycle of abuse, the explosion, then the honeymoon. I know, Ray, I said, my voice hollow. It is okay. We will fix this, he said, reaching for me. Tomorrow, everything changes. He had no idea how right he was. I lay in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling. The 3-month clock had 4 days left, but we weren't going to make it to 90 days. The game had accelerated. Sierra had pushed him to the edge. Raymond had jumped, and tomorrow, Sterling and I would be waiting at the bottom of the cliff to catch him, not with a net, but with a cage. I closed my eyes, visualizing the typo on the screen. One missing letter, $150 million. The math was finally working in my favor. The blackout hit Chicago at exactly 9:45 at night. It was not a flicker, nor a gradual dimming. It was a total, violent subtraction of light. 1 second, the apartment was humming with the artificial life of the refrigerator, the HVAC system, and the recessed lighting. The next, we were plunged into a silence so heavy it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city had vanished. A grid failure had taken out the entire block. The only illumination came from the faint, blood-red glow of the emergency exit signs in the hallway leaking under the door, and the distant, rhythmic thrum of the building's backup generators kicking to life somewhere deep in the basement. The darkness did not bring peace. It brought a magnification of everything that was wrong in that room. Raymond and I were sitting in the living room. He had been nursing his third scotch, staring at the wall, while I pretended to read a book by the light of a small lamp that was now dead. When the dark hit, the sound of his breathing became the loudest thing in the world. It was ragged, wet with alcohol and fear. Great, Raymond muttered, his voice cracking in the gloom. Just great. Even the grid is against me. He stood up, fumbling for his phone to use the flashlight. The beam cut through the room, a jagged spear of white light that swung wildly as he moved toward the kitchen to find a candle. Stay put, he commanded, as if I were a child. I will find the matches. I sat perfectly still on the sofa. My heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm against my ribs. I was not afraid of the dark. I was afraid of the light that was about to be shed on my secrets. I had made a mistake, a rookie mistake, a tired mistake. My burner phone, the matte black device Sterling had given me. The lifeline to my $150 million future was inside my purse, which was sitting on the coffee table. I usually kept it on silent, always. But earlier that afternoon, after the call with Sterling about the deposition trap, I had been so focused on getting Raymond to the meeting that I had toggled the side switch to check the volume. I hadn't toggled it back, and now, in the dead silence of the blackout, a sound tore through the room. It was a vibrate and ring pattern, loud, insistent. Bzzzt, ring, bzzzt. The sound was coming from my purse. Raymond stopped moving. The beam of his flashlight froze on the kitchen counter. I reached for the purse, my hand darting out in the dark. It is just an alarm, I said, my voice too quick. I will turn it off. That is not your ringtone, Raymond said. He swung the flashlight around. The beam hit me in the face, blinding me for a second. He walked toward me, his steps heavy on the hardwood. That is not your phone, he said again, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. It is an old phone, I lied, my hand closing around the strap of the bag. I was using it for music. Give it to me. Ray, stop. It is nothing. He didn't argue. He lunged. He grabbed the purse from my hands, wrenching it away with a force that snapped the leather strap against my wrist. He upended the bag onto the coffee table, lipstick, keys, and a wallet clattered onto the glass surface, and there, glowing in the darkness like a radioactive isotope, was the black phone. The screen was lit up. The caller ID was visible. Sterling. Raymond stared at the name. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It was enough time for his brain to process the impossible. Sterling Blackwell, the titan of Chicago finance, the husband of his mistress, and now, the man calling his wife at 10 o'clock at night during a blackout. The flashlight beam shook in Raymond's hand. Sterling, he whispered. The word came out strangled. Then the shock turned into something else. It turned into the ugliest emotion I had ever seen. It wasn't heartbreak. It was narcissism, wounded and bleeding. You, he shouted, the sound exploding in the small space. You and Sterling. He looked at me, his face twisted in the harsh light. I am out there fighting for this family, he screamed, gesturing wildly with the phone. I am dealing with sharks. I am dealing with Sierra and you. You are sleeping with her husband. The audacity of it hit me like a physical blow. He was the one who had drained our accounts. He was the one who had bought a condo for his mistress. He was the one who had forged my signature. And here he was, standing in his living room, playing the victim because he thought I had beaten him to the punch. I almost laughed. A bubble of hysterical, cold laughter rose in my throat. It is not what you think, Ray, I said, my voice calm, almost bored. Open it, he roared. He shoved the phone into my face. Unlock it. I want to see the messages. I want to see how long you have been laughing at me. I am not unlocking it, I said. He grabbed my arm. His fingers dug into my bicep. Hard. It wasn't a strike, but it was violence. It was the desperate containment of a man losing control. You are cheating on me, he spat, his spit landing on my cheek. You hypocrite. You quiet, perfect little saint. You are worse than me. At least I... He stopped. He almost confessed. At least I cheated with a reason. That was what he wanted to say. At least you what, Ray? I challenged him, standing up and pulling my arm free. At least you what? Unlock the phone, he screamed again, raising the device as if to smash it. Bam, bam, bam. The sound came from the front door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was a rhythmic, authoritative hammering that demanded entry. Raymond froze. The phone hovered in the air. Security, a voice boomed from the hallway. Building safety check, open the door. Raymond looked at the door, then at me, then at the phone. He was torn between his rage and his fear of authority. Hide this, he hissed, shoving the phone into his pocket. He wiped his face, trying to compose the mask of the successful CEO. He smoothed his shirt. If you say one word. He walked to the door and pulled it open. We are fine, Raymond started to say. We have flashlights. We don't need. He stopped. Standing in the hallway, illuminated by the high-powered beams of 2 uniformed security guards, was a figure in a dark raincoat. Sterling Blackwell. He looked impeccable. The chaos of the blackout seemed to bend around him, leaving him untouched. He wasn't holding a flashlight. He didn't need to. The guards were lighting his path like he was a visiting dignitary. Sterling looked past Raymond, his gray eyes locking onto mine in the darkness of the living room. He saw my flushed face. He saw the way I was holding my wrist where the strap had snapped. His jaw tightened, a microscopic movement that only I noticed. Mr. Hughes, Sterling said. His voice was smooth, calm, and utterly terrifying. I apologize for the intrusion. My security team alerted me to a distress signal from this unit. Distress signal, Raymond stammered, stepping back. We are fine. Just the lights. Sterling stepped into the apartment. He didn't ask. He just occupied the space. The security guards stayed at the door, blocking the exit, their presence a silent threat. I tried to call, Sterling said, looking at Raymond's pocket where the burner phone was hidden. But you seem to be occupied. Raymond went pale. He realized the call hadn't been a romantic rendezvous. It had been something else. You called her, Raymond asked, his voice trembling. Why are you calling my wife? Sterling walked over to the coffee table. He picked up the spilled lipstick and placed it upright. Then he turned to Raymond. Because, Mr. Hughes, Sterling said, lying with the ease of a sociopath. Mrs. Wright works for me, Raymond blinked. She what? Autumn has been acting as a specialized consultant for Northbridge Meridian Group for the past month, Sterling said. She has been advising me on the acquisition of a distressed asset, specifically, your company. The air left the room. Raymond looked at me. He looked at Sterling. His brain was trying to rewire itself in real time. The betrayal wasn't sexual, it was professional, and in Raymond's warped worldview, that was somehow both better and worse. You are buying my debt, Raymond whispered. I have already bought it, Sterling corrected. And your wife has been instrumental in helping me understand the unique accounting practices you employ. Sterling took a step closer to Raymond. I was calling her, Sterling continued, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, because she triggered a panic alert on her watch, which usually implies that someone is obstructing her work. Are you obstructing my consultant's work, Raymond? The shift in Raymond was instantaneous and pathetic. The abusive husband vanished. The jealous lover evaporated. In their place stood a coward. He realized that the man standing in his living room held the mortgage on his company, his reputation, and his freedom. No, Raymond squeaked. No, absolutely not. We were just discussing. The blackout startled us. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the black phone. He handled it like it was a holy relic he had accidentally desecrated. Here, Raymond said, handing the phone to Sterling. She dropped it. I was just picking it up for her. It was a lie so transparent it was insulting. But Sterling accepted it. He took the phone and wiped the screen with his thumb. Good, Sterling said, because we have a deadline. Raymond, Sterling turned to me. I assume you have the solvency affidavit. Yes, I said, my voice steady. He signed it. Excellent. Sterling turned back to Raymond. Tomorrow morning, Sterling said, 10 o'clock, the Four Seasons, Suite 400. Bring every corporate binder you have. Bring the transfer logs. And bring your wife. The capital rescue, Raymond asked, hope flaring in his eyes like a desperate flame. Is that what this is? You are the investor. I am the solution, Sterling said. He didn't say what he was solving. Be there. Don't be late. Sterling turned to leave. He signaled to the security guards, who stepped back to clear the hallway. As he passed me, Sterling stopped. He was close enough that I could smell the rain on his coat and the faint, clean scent of sandalwood. He didn't touch me. He didn't need to. He leaned down, just an inch, under the pretense of checking the floor for obstacles. Tomorrow, he murmured, so quietly that only I could hear him over the hum of the distant generator. Do not shake. You will be the one to stamp the final order. Then he straightened up. Good night, Mrs. Wright, he said aloud. Try to get some sleep. You have a big day. He walked out into the dark hallway, his guards flanking him, leaving us in the silence. Raymond stood there, staring at the empty doorway. He looked like a man who had just been visited by God and the devil simultaneously and couldn't tell which was which. He turned to me. The anger was gone. The jealousy was gone. He looked at me with a new expression, awe and fear. You work for him, Raymond whispered. You are the consultant. I told you, Ray, I said, picking up my purse and slinging it over my shoulder. I am trying to save us. You are amazing, he breathed, sinking onto the sofa. You got Sterling Blackwell to invest. You saved the company. He was delusional. He was rewriting the narrative again, making me the hero so he could be the beneficiary. He didn't see the knife. He only saw the hand reaching out. Go to sleep, Ray, I said coldly. We have to be up early. I walked to the guest bedroom. I didn't lock the door this time. I didn't need to. Raymond wouldn't touch me. He was too afraid of the asset I had become. I lay in the dark, listening to the city slowly waking up as power grids flickered back to life block by block. I looked at my wrist. The smartwatch glowed faintly. My heart rate was steady. 80 beats per minute. I wasn't shaking. Sterling was right. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the executioner. And tomorrow, I would drop the blade. The morning after the blackout, something fundamental shifted in the architecture of my mind. For weeks, I had been operating as Sterling Blackwell's instrument, a high-fidelity recording device wrapped in a silk blouse. I had followed his instructions, memorized his ledgers, and played the part of the oblivious wife. But as I watched the sunrise reflect off the glass towers of the loop, I realized that relying on a billionaire to save me was just another form of dependency. Raymond had promised to take care of me, too. Look how that turned out. I needed my own leverage. I needed a parachute that Sterling didn't pack. I waited until Raymond left for the office. Clutching his binders for the Capital Rescue meeting like they were religious texts, he was manic with hope, convinced that Sterling's interest was purely financial. He didn't know he was walking into a deposition. Once he was gone, I didn't go to Northbridge Meridian. Instead, I took a cab to a Starbucks in the Gold Coast, 3 blocks from Sierra Lane's apartment. I sat in the back corner and sent a text to the number I had given the assistant in the bathroom at the gala. I know about the video, but I also know about the short positions. Coffee, I am around the corner. It was a bluff. I didn't know about any short positions. I just knew that Sierra was greedy, and people who are greedy and sleeping with CEOs usually try to monetize the pillow talk. 5 minutes later, the assistant walked in. She wasn't carrying coffee cups this time. She looked terrified, glancing over her shoulder as if Sierra might materialize out of the espresso machine. "Mrs. Wright?" she whispered, sliding into the seat opposite me. "If she sees me—" "She won't," I said, sliding a vanilla latte toward her. "Drink. You look like you haven't slept." The girl, her name was Chloe, took the cup with shaking hands. "What do you mean about the short positions?" "I mean," I said, leaning in, my voice low and steady, "that Sierra isn't just threatening to leak a sex tape. She is betting against Raymond's company in the stock market. She is waiting for the stock to crash so she can cash out. That is illegal. Chloe, that is federal prison time. And since you are her assistant, guess who the SEC is going to look at as an accomplice?" Chloe went pale. The bluff had landed. "I didn't sign the trades," Chloe stammered, tears welling up. "I just delivered the envelopes." "Envelopes to whom?" "To a guy. Some broker she meets at the Soho House. She gives him thumb drives." I felt a cold thrill run down my spine. It wasn't just a sex scandal. It was corporate espionage. Sierra was selling Raymond's internal data to a group of speculators. She was hollowing him out from the inside while he was buying her jewelry. "Chloe," I said softly, "you are drowning. You are holding on to an anchor thinking it is a life raft. Sierra is going down. Do you want to go with her?" "No," she whispered. "Then give me the broker's name," I said, "and I will make sure your name is kept out of the indictment." She wrote a name on a napkin. Julian Vane. I took the napkin. "Go back to work. Act normal. When the time comes, I will call you." I left the coffee shop with a piece of intelligence that Sterling didn't have. For the first time, I was ahead of the game. I went straight to the ghost office at Northbridge Meridian. Sterling was there, standing by the window, looking at the city he practically owned. He turned when I entered, expecting a report on Raymond's mood. Instead, I slapped the napkin onto the mahogany table. "Sierra is selling insider information to Julian Vane," I said. "She is shorting the stock. She wants the company to crash." Sterling looked at the napkin, then at me. His expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed. He wasn't surprised by the greed. He was surprised by the messenger. "Vane is a bottom feeder," Sterling said dismissively. "He runs a hedge fund that specializes in distressed assets. It makes sense." "It makes sense," I repeated, my voice rising. "Sterling, she is sabotaging the company you are trying to acquire. If she leaks that video early, or if Vane dumps a massive short position, the stock hits zero. Raymond goes bankrupt before the 90 days are up." "I am aware of the risks," Sterling said calmly. "Then why are we waiting?" I demanded. "Let's destroy her now. I have the assistant. We can go to the SEC today. We can arrest Sierra, expose Raymond, and end this charade. Why do I have to spend another night in that house?" Sterling walked over to the table. He placed his hands flat on the surface and leaned toward me. "Because I don't want the stock at zero," he said. The words hung in the air. "Excuse me. If the company goes bankrupt," Sterling said, his voice devoid of emotion, "the assets are frozen in liquidity court for years. The creditors fight over the scraps. I don't want the scraps. Autumn, I want the algorithm." "The algorithm?" "Raymond's company owns a proprietary predictive modeling software," Sterling admitted. "It is the only thing of value he has. I need to acquire the company intact to get the IP. If the stock crashes to zero, the IP gets auctioned off. If I wait until day 90, I can trigger a debt-for-equity swap that hands me the entire company whole, without a bankruptcy filing. I need the stock to be low, but not dead. I need a controlled demolition, not an explosion." I stared at him. The realization washed over me like ice water. "This isn't about revenge for you," I said quietly. "This isn't about your wife cheating on you. This is a hostile takeover. You are just using the affair as a convenient distraction to get what you wanted anyway." Sterling straightened up. He adjusted his cufflinks. "It is both," he said. "Efficiency is not a sin. Autumn." "I am not a pawn," I said, the anger flaring hot in my chest. "I am not just some piece on your board that you can sacrifice to get a software code." "I never said you were a pawn," Sterling countered. He walked around the table until he was standing right in front of me. He was close enough that I could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. "A pawn goes first. A pawn dies to save the king. You are not dying. Autumn, you are the queen. You are the most powerful piece on the board because you can move in any direction." He held my gaze. "But the queen still has to wait for the right move," he said. "If you blow this up now to satisfy your anger, you get a quick divorce and maybe half of a bankrupt estate. If you wait until day 90, you get $150 million and Raymond gets nothing. He walks away naked. Isn't that what you want?" "I want him to hurt," I said. "He will hurt," Sterling promised. "But poverty hurts longer than heartbreak. Trust me." "I don't trust you," I said. "I trust the check." "That is smart," Sterling said. A faint smile touched his lips. "I need you to be the player. Autumn, not the victim. Can you do that?" I looked at him. I hated how logical he was. I hated that he was right. "Fine," I said. "We wait, but I'm making my own insurance." I left the office and went to a print shop 3 blocks away. I didn't use the secure cloud. I didn't use the devices Sterling gave me. I went analog. I took the photos of the fake emails, the ones where Raymond had misspelled accommodate, and I printed them out. I wrote a detailed affidavit explaining the forgery. I included the timeline of the bank transfers. I put it all in a thick envelope. I mailed it to a lawyer in Wisconsin, an old friend of my father's who hated big finance and had no connection to Chicago. I included a note. "If anything happens to me, or if I am arrested, open this and send it to the district attorney." I wasn't just protecting myself from Raymond. I was protecting myself from Sterling. If his controlled demolition went wrong and I ended up as the collateral damage, I needed a way to blow up the whole world. When I got home that evening, the apartment was filled with the smell of expensive takeout. Sushi. Raymond was sitting at the dining table. A bottle of sake open. He looked relaxed, The meeting with Sterling that morning must have gone exactly as planned. Sterling had probably played the role of the benevolent savior, lulling Raymond into a false sense of security. "Hey," Raymond said, smiling. It was a genuine smile, the kind I hadn't seen in 2 years. It made my stomach turn. "I ordered the omakase. Come sit." I sat down. "You seem happy." "I am," he said, pouring me a cup of sake. The meeting was incredible. The Northbridge Group, they really get the vision. They are going to inject capital. We are saved. Autumn, the debt is going to be restructured. He reached across the table and took my hand. "And it made me think," he said, his voice dropping to a murmur, "about us." I pulled my hand back slightly, but he held on. "I know I have been distant," he said. "I know things have been weird, but with this pressure off, I want to start over. I want to be the husband you deserve." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had mortgaged my apartment, stolen my mother's hospital money, and slept with another woman in a bed paid for with my inheritance. And now, because he thought he had found a new sugar daddy in Sterling, he wanted to patch things up with his old appliance. He wasn't sorry. He was just relieved. "Start over?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "How?" "I was thinking," he said. "We could renew our vows, maybe in the spring, a big party. Show everyone that we are solid." It was pathetic. He wanted a PR event. He wanted to use our marriage to signal stability to his new investors. "That sounds expensive," I said. "Money isn't going to be an issue anymore," Raymond said, grinning. "We are back on top. I am tired, Ray," I said, standing up. "I can't think about vows right now." "Come on," he said, his face darkening slightly. "I am trying here. Autumn, don't be cold." "I am not cold," I said. "I am just realistic." I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water. My phone, the real one, buzzed on the counter. It was a notification from my bank. Not the joint account. My personal credit monitoring service. New inquiry alert. "A loan application for $500,000 has been submitted in your name." I froze. I tapped the notification. It was a business line of credit. The collateral listed was my mother's house in Lake Geneva, the house that was already in foreclosure, the house I had just paid $45,000 to save. He was doing it again, even now, even while he was sitting there eating tuna belly and talking about renewing our vows. He was actively defrauding me. He must have submitted the application hours ago, probably right after his meeting with Sterling, thinking that with the new capital coming in, he could bridge the gap with another loan in my name. He wasn't stopping. He was doubling down. He was a cancer that wouldn't stop until it had consumed every healthy cell in my life. I put the phone down. I turned back to look at him. "Is the sushi good?" I asked. "Delicious," Raymond said, oblivious. "Good," I said. "Enjoy it." I walked to the bedroom. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and breathed in the dark. Sterling wanted to wait until day 90. He wanted the algorithm, but Raymond was moving too fast. He was cannibalizing my life faster than Sterling could buy his debt. I picked up the burner phone. He just took out another loan in my name, $500,000. He is leveraging assets I don't even have anymore. Sterling's reply came instantly. He is trying to pay Sierra off. He thinks he can borrow his way out of the blackmail. I typed back, "I don't care what he thinks. I am done being the collateral. Step up the timeline, Sterling, or I burn the house down myself." There was a long pause. Then 3 dots appeared. "Hold on. I am accelerating the closing, but you need to intercept that loan application. Call the bank in the morning, flag it as fraud, but do not tell Raymond." "Why?" "Because when the police come for him," Sterling wrote, "I want the handcuffs to be a surprise." I put the phone down. I looked at the calendar on the wall. 80 days left. No, I couldn't wait 80 days. I lay back on the pillows. I thought about the queen analogy Sterling had used. The queen can move in any direction. I realized then that Sterling was wrong about one thing. The queen doesn't just protect the king. Sometimes, she takes the board. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I would call the bank. I would officially report my husband for identity theft. I was planting the dynamite at the base of the foundation. Let Sterling have his algorithm. I was going to have my justice. The 88th day dawned with a silence that felt heavy, like the drop in air pressure before a tornado touches down. I sat in the secure viewing room at Northbridge Meridian, watching the digital map of my husband's financial empire turn from green to red. It was a bloodbath, but it was a controlled one. Sterling stood next to me, his arms crossed, watching the screen with the dispassionate focus of a surgeon. "It is done," Sterling said. His voice was quiet, lacking any triumphant inflection. "As of 9 o'clock this morning, I have acquired the final tranche of mezzanine debt from the secondary lenders. I control 96% of Hughes Capital's obligations." "And he doesn't know?" I asked. "He knows someone bought it," Sterling said. "He just doesn't know it is the same man he is flying to Atlanta to meet tomorrow. He thinks Northbridge is his white knight. He has no idea he's walking into the lion's den to shake hands with the lion." 96%, I repeated. "That gives you the right to force liquidation." "It gives me the right to do whatever I want," Sterling corrected. "I can seize the assets. I can convert the debt to equity and fire the board. I can sell the office furniture. Tomorrow, autumn, your husband ceases to be a CEO. He becomes a trespasser in his own building." I nodded. It was the moment I had waited 3 months for. But I didn't feel elation. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. I left the office and went straight to the bank. I didn't go to the teller. I went to the safety deposit box vault. I spent an hour moving every piece of physical evidence I had gathered over the last 88 days. The original hard drive with the cloned phone data. The printed emails where Raymond misspelled accommodate. The photos of the forged lease. The sworn affidavit from the notary who admitted Raymond had pressured him. I locked them in box 402. Then I went home to set the bait. Sterling had taught me that a paranoid man like Raymond needs to find something to calm his suspicions. If he found nothing, he would keep digging. So I gave him something to find. I left a few printed emails on my desk in the guest room. They were fake. I had drafted them to look like correspondence between me and a divorce lawyer who was advising me to wait and try to work things out. Client Autumn Wright. Subject reconciliation message. "I think he is changing. He seems sincere about the capital rescue. Maybe we should put the filing on hold." I left the paper sticking out from under a stack of magazines. It was sloppy. It was perfect. When Raymond came home that evening, he was vibrating with a frantic energy. He went into the guest room, looking for a stapler, and when he came out 5 minutes later, he looked smug. He had found the email. He thought he had won me back. He thought I was the weak, indecisive wife he could manipulate, but his smugness was a cover for something else. Later that night, while he was in the shower, my phone pinged with a Google alert I had set up for my own name. I opened the link. It was a blind item on a popular Chicago gossip blog, the kind that industry insiders read over their morning coffee. Which struggling tech CEO's wife is rumored to be keeping company with a mystery billionaire, sources say the devoted spouse has been spotted at private hangars and exclusive clubs, securing her own golden parachute while hubby fights to save the company. I stared at the screen. It was Raymond. He had hired a crisis PR firm. I recognized the tactic immediately. It was the muddy the waters strategy Sterling had warned me about. Raymond was projecting. He knew he was guilty of infidelity and fraud, so he was planting the seed that I was the one cheating, that way, if the marriage exploded. He could play the victim. He could say, "She left me for a richer man." Instead of, "I stole her money and slept with a model." The irony was sickening. The mystery billionaire the article alluded to was Sterling, the man Raymond was begging for money. Raymond was accidentally smearing his own savior to hurt his wife. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I didn't demand he take it down. I screenshotted the article. I saved it to the cloud. Tactical silence. If I fought it, I would look defensive. If I ignored it, It became just another piece of evidence in the folder labeled defamation of character. I walked into the kitchen as Raymond came out of the bedroom, towel drying his hair. "Is everything okay?" he asked, watching me closely. He was waiting for me to bring up the article. He wanted a fight. He wanted to accuse me so he could feel righteous. "Everything is fine," I said, pouring a glass of water. "Just nervous about the Atlanta trip." "Don't be," he said, a cruel glint in his eye. "It is going to be a very revealing trip for everyone." He thought he had checkmated me. He had no idea I was playing a completely different game. The next morning, the day before the trip. Day 89. Sierra Lane made her move. I was at a boutique in the Gold Coast. Picking up the dress Sterling had insisted I wear for the victory lap, it was a black sheath dress, severe and elegant, armor made of silk. My phone rang. It was Chloe, Sierra's assistant. "She is freaking out," Chloe whispered. The background noise sounded like a bathroom fan. Sterling cut her off. Her credit cards were declined at breakfast. The account she uses for her allowance is frozen. "He is tightening the noose," I said. "She is panicked. Mrs. Wright," Chloe said. "She thinks Raymond is bailing on her because he hasn't answered her texts in 2 hours. She is going to crash the event." "The Atlanta event?" "Yes. She bought a ticket on a commercial flight. She has the flash drive with the video. She told me she is going to walk up to the microphone during the Q&A session and play it on the main screen. She wants to burn both of you down in front of the investors." It was a suicide mission. Sierra had realized she was losing the money and the man, so she was choosing destruction. "Where is the drive now?" I asked. "It is in her purse," Chloe said. "But she made a backup. It is on her laptop in the cloud." "Do you have the password?" "I have all her passwords," Chloe said. "I set them up." "Delete it," I said. "Wipe the cloud and the physical drive." "I can't get it without her knowing," Chloe said. "She is clutching that bag like it is a baby." "You don't need to get it," I said. "You just need to swap it." "Swap it? Do you have a flash drive that looks like hers?" "They are all generic silver SanDisks," Chloe said. "Put a blank one in her bag," I instructed. "Do it when she is going through security at the airport. She will be distracted taking off her shoes. Make the switch. If she catches me—" "She won't," I said. "Because you are invisible to her. Chloe, you are just the help. Use that." I hung up. I stood in the dressing room, looking at myself in the mirror. I wasn't just fighting Raymond anymore. I was fighting a woman who had nothing left to lose. An hour later, a courier arrived at the apartment. Raymond wasn't home. He was at the office, frantically shredding documents he thought might be incriminating, unaware that I had already digitized them weeks ago. The courier handed me a small velvet box. There was no card, just a folded piece of heavy cardstock. I opened the box. Inside lay a necklace. It wasn't a diamond choker. It wasn't a romantic bauble. It was a single, flawless solitaire diamond on a chain of platinum so thin it looked like a thread of light. It was cold, hard, and unbreakable. I unfolded the note. Sterling's handwriting was sharp and angular. Strong enough. 2 words. He wasn't telling me the necklace was strong enough. He was telling me that I was strong enough. He knew about the PR smear. He knew about the pressure. He was acknowledging that I hadn't cracked. It wasn't a love letter. It was a commendation from a commanding officer. I fastened the necklace around my neck. The diamond sat in the hollow of my throat, a cold weight that reminded me of my purpose. At 5 o'clock, Raymond came home. He was carrying a garment bag and a briefcase that looked stuffed to the bursting point. "We fly out at 8 in the morning," he announced. "Northbridge sent a private jet itinerary. We are meeting the lead investor at the St. Regis in Atlanta." "The lead investor," I repeated. "Did they give you a name?" "Just the chairman," Raymond said, puffing out his chest. "Apparently, he is very private, but he is bringing a check for $50 million to capitalize the new debt structure." Raymond was practically salivating. He saw $50 million. He didn't see the guillotine. "I need you to look perfect," Raymond said, eyeing my jeans. "This is a conservative group. Wear something wifely." "I have the perfect dress," I said. "Good," he said. "And Autumn. No phones at the meeting. They are strict about security." "I understand," I said. He went to his study to pack his files. I went to the guest room to pack mine. I opened my suitcase. I placed the black dress on top. Underneath it, I placed a thick manila envelope. I had spent the afternoon printing the final dossier. It was 3 inches thick. It contained the foreclosure notices, the medical bills, the forged lease, the misspelled emails, the text logs from Sierra, the affidavit from the notary, and the bank records showing the wire transfers to the shell companies, and on top of the stack, clipped with a single black binder clip, was the petition for dissolution of marriage. I took a black marker. On the front of the envelope, I wrote 4 words, Day 90, no negotiation. I zipped the suitcase shut. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. "It is done. She has the blank drive. I threw the real one in the trash at O'Hare. She is boarding now. She has no idea." I let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding. The weapon was disarmed. Sierra was flying to Atlanta to humiliate herself. Not me. I walked out into the living room. The apartment was dark. The city lights twinkling outside. It was the last night I would ever spend here as Raymond Hughes' wife. Raymond was standing by the window, looking out at the city he thought he had conquered. "It is funny," he said, not turning around. 3 months ago, I thought we were done. I thought I was going to lose everything. He turned to look at me, a glass of scotch in his hand. "But look at us," he said. "We survived." He raised his glass. "To the rescue," he said. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had lied to me every single day for the last 90 days. I looked at the man who had tried to frame me, who had smeared my name in the press, who had left my mother to die in debt. I touched the cold diamond at my throat. "To the rescue," I echoed. I didn't drink. I went to bed and slept the sleep of the dead. The next morning, the sun rose over Chicago. Bright and unforgiving, we took the car to the private airfield. Raymond was giddy, talking nonstop about the expansion plans he had for the company once the check cleared. We boarded the Gulfstream. The interior was cream leather and walnut. "This is the life, huh?" Raymond said, settling into the seat and stretching his legs. "Get used to it, babe." I looked out the window as the plane taxied. I watched the Chicago skyline retreat. "I planned to," I said softly. The flight to Atlanta was smooth, too smooth. It felt like the calm passage before an execution. We landed at noon. A driver was waiting. We were whisked to the Saint. Regis and Buckhead. The conference room was booked under Northbridge Meridian Group. Raymond checked his tie in the reflection of the elevator doors. He looked nervous but confident. He thought he was walking in to sign a deal. The doors opened. The hallway was lined with security guards. Not hotel security, private security. Sterling's men. "Mr. Hughes," one of them said, opening the double doors at the end of the hall. "They are waiting for you." Raymond took a deep breath. He grabbed my hand. His palm was sweating. "Here we go," he whispered. "Smile." I didn't smile. I tightened my grip on the handle of my briefcase. We walked into the room. It was a cavernous space, flooded with light. At the far end, there was a long table. Seated at the table were 6 lawyers in dark suits. A court reporter sat with her machine ready, and in the center chair, sitting with the stillness of a predator that has already caught its prey, was Sterling Blackwell. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't wearing a partner face. He was wearing the face of a man who owned the building, the table, and the soul of the man walking toward him. Raymond stopped. He faltered. "Sterling," Raymond said, confusion clouding his face. "I thought, where's the chairman?" Sterling didn't stand up. He didn't offer a hand. He simply leaned forward into the microphone on the table. "Mr. Hughes," Sterling said, his voice amplified, filling the room. "Please take a seat. The acquisition hearing is now in session. Raymond looked at me. He looked for reassurance. He looked for the wife who was supposed to be his rock. I pulled my hand away from his. I walked over to the empty chair on the opposite side of the table, the side where the lawyers sat. I pulled out the chair next to Sterling, and I sat down. Raymond stood alone in the center of the room, holding his binders, looking from Sterling to me and back again. "Autumn," he whispered. "What are you doing?" I placed my briefcase on the table. I unzipped it. I pulled out the envelope with the black marker writing. Day 90. No negotiation. I slid it across the mahogany surface until it stopped right in front of him. "I am closing the deal, Ray," I said. The conference room at the St. Regis in Atlanta was not designed for an execution. It was designed for celebration. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, refracting the light into 1,000 glittering prisms. The room was packed to capacity. There were institutional investors in bespoke suits, industry analysts with their tablets ready, and a hungry pack of financial journalists who smelled blood in the water. Raymond stood at the podium. He looked magnificent in the way a statue looks magnificent before it is toppled. He was beaming, his chest puffed out, radiating the false confidence of a man who believed he had just pulled off the greatest con of his life. "Ladies and gentlemen," Raymond boomed into the microphone, his voice smooth and commanding, "thank you for coming. I know there have been rumors. I know there has been speculation about the health of Hughes Capital. But today, I am here to put those rumors to rest forever." He swept his arm toward the side entrance, a gesture of grand invitation. "I am proud to announce a strategic partnership that will not only stabilize our operations, but propel us into the next decade of dominance," Raymond declared. "Please welcome my friend, my partner, and our savior, Mr. Sterling Blackwell of Northbridge Meridian Group." The room erupted in polite applause. Raymond clapped hardest of all, turning to the door with a grin that threatened to split his face. The double doors opened. Sterling Blackwell walked in. He did not walk like a savior. He walked like a glaciologist coming to inspect an avalanche. He was flanked by 6 lawyers, all carrying identical black leather binders. He did not smile. He did not wave. He walked straight to the stage. Ignoring Raymond's outstretched hand, the applause died instantly. A heavy, confused silence settled over the room. Raymond's smile faltered. "Sterling," he whispered, away from the mic. "The handshake. We practiced the handshake." Sterling stepped up to the podium. He adjusted the microphone. He looked out at the sea of faces. Then he looked at Raymond. "There seems to be a misunderstanding," Sterling said. His voice was calm, amplified through the speakers, reaching every corner of the room. "I am not here to save Hughes Capital. I am here to foreclose on it." A gasp rippled through the audience. The journalists started typing furiously. "Foreclose?" Raymond laughed nervously, leaning into the mic. "Mr. Blackwell is joking. We have a capital rescue agreement." "We have no such thing," Sterling said coldly. "What we have is a debt acquisition structure. As of 9 o'clock this morning, Northbridge Meridian controls 96% of your company's outstanding debt. You have breached 3 separate financial covenants in the last 48 hours. Sterling signaled to his lead lawyer, who slapped a document onto the projector. A balance sheet appeared on the giant screen behind them. "This is a record of unauthorized transfers to shell companies in Nevada," Sterling explained, pointing to the red figures. "Money siphoned from the employee pension fund, money used to pay for luxury leases and personal gifts. That is a lie." Raymond shouted, his composure shattering. "Those were authorized. My wife Autumn authorized those." He pointed at me. I was sitting in the front row, my hands folded in my lap, my face a mask of stone. "She is the one," Raymond yelled, desperate to spin the narrative he had planted in the press. "She was advising the firm. She signed the transfers." Sterling didn't flinch. He pressed a button on the remote. The screen changed. It was the email chain, the fake conversation Raymond had invented to frame me. Mr. Hughes claims his wife directed these frauds via email, Sterling said. He claims she sent this directive on January 15th. He zoomed in on a specific sentence. We need to accommodate their fee structure. The word accommodate, Sterling said. Spelled with one M. He turned to the audience. My team analyzed 10 years of Mrs. Wright's correspondence. She has never once misspelled this word. Mr. Hughes, however, has misspelled it in 42 separate quarterly reports, 300 internal memos, and Sterling paused for effect. In the text message he sent to his mistress 5 minutes before taking this stage, laughter bubbled up in the room. Harsh, incredulous laughter. Raymond turned pale. He looked at the screen. He looked at the typo that was about to cost him his life. This is a setup, Raymond stammered. You are working together. We are, Sterling admitted. Because you made us. Before Raymond could respond, a commotion broke out at the back of the room. He is a liar, a female voice shrieked. The doors burst open. Sierra Lane stormed in. She looked deranged. Her hair was wild. Her designer dress rumpled from the flight. She was clutching a silver flash drive in her hand like a grenade. He is a liar and a thief, Sierra screamed, marching down the aisle. And I have the proof. I have the video. Security moved to intercept her, but Sterling held up a hand. Let her speak. Sierra rushed to the tech booth at the side of the stage. She shoved the technician aside. You want the truth? She yelled at the investors. Here is the truth. This is Raymond Hughes. This is your CEO. She jammed the flash drive into the laptop connected to the main screen. Raymond lunged forward. No, Sierra. Don't. Sierra hit the enter key with a triumphant smash. The room held its breath. Everyone looked at the giant screen, expecting a scandal, expecting pornography, expecting the end of a career. The screen flickered, and then a video began to play. It wasn't Raymond in a hotel room. It was a cartoon, a looping, 10-second clip of a cat playing a keyboard. The room went dead silent for a heartbeat, and then it exploded into laughter. Not polite laughter, roaring, belly-shaking laughter. Sierra stared at the screen, her mouth open in horror. What? No, that is not. I checked it. She frantically clicked the mouse. The cat kept playing. Looking for this? A quiet voice cut through the chaos. Chloe, Sierra's assistant, stood up from the back row. She held up a small, silver drive. You are fired, Chloe, Sierra screamed. You little traitor, I will kill you. Actually, Chloe said, her voice shaking but clear. I quit, and I gave the original drive to the SEC this morning, along with your trading logs, Sierra. They know about the short selling. Sierra froze. The color drained from her face. 2 federal agents, who had been waiting in the wings, stepped forward. They didn't go for Raymond. They went for Sierra. Sierra Lane, one of them said. We have a warrant for your arrest regarding insider trading and corporate extortion. As Sierra was dragged out, screaming and kicking, the room turned back to the stage. Raymond was standing alone. He had lost his mistress. He had lost his narrative. He had lost his dignity. He looked at me. Autumn, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Please, tell them. Tell them we are a team. Tell them I did this for us. It was time. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor, a harsh sound that silenced the room. I walked up the stairs to the stage. I stood next to Sterling. But I didn't look at him. I looked at my husband. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the thick envelope. I am not your team. Raymond, I said. My voice was not loud, but the microphone caught every syllable. I am your creditor. I took a step closer to him. You thought I was weak because I stayed, I said. You thought I was stupid because I signed your papers. You thought you could use me as a shield and then throw me away when the police came. I dropped the envelope on the podium. It landed with a heavy thud. I wanted a divorce on day 1, I said. I had the papers ready the night you came home and lied to my face. But if I had left then, you would have destroyed me. You would have hidden the money. You would have framed me. I looked him dead in the eye. So I waited. I said. I waited 90 days. I waited for you to forge my signature on the solvency affidavit, proving you were the sole decision maker. I waited for you to misspell that email. I waited for you to invite me here. I pointed to the envelope. That is my divorce petition, I said. And underneath it is the evidence that sends you to prison for 10 to 15 years. Raymond stared at the envelope. He looked like a man waking up from a dream into a nightmare. 90 days, I whispered. I gave you 90 days to be a decent man. You used every single one of them to be a criminal. Autumn, he whimpered. I have nothing. Correction, Sterling interrupted. You have debt. Sterling snapped his fingers. The hotel security team moved in. They were not gentle. They took Raymond by the arms. Mr. Hughes, the lead guard said, you are trespassing on Northbridge property. You need to leave. This is my company, Raymond shouted as they dragged him away. I built this autumn. His voice faded as the doors swung shut behind him. The room was silent. I stood on the stage. The bright lights burning my eyes. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was lightness. The weight was gone. The 90-day clock had stopped ticking. I turned to Sterling. He was looking at me. For the first time. He smiled. It wasn't a shark's smile. It was genuine. Meeting adjourned, Sterling said into the mic. The aftermath was a blur of lawyers and signatures. The contract held. On the 91st day, the escrow account unlocked. $150 million appeared in my name. I didn't buy a yacht. I didn't go on a shopping spree. I paid off my mother's hospital bills in full. I hired the best private nurses money could buy. I bought back the Lake Geneva house from the bank, paying cash, and put the deed in a trust that no one could ever touch again. I sent Chloe a check for $100,000, a consulting fee for her bravery. And then, I sat in the new apartment I had bought. It was a penthouse overlooking the lake, far away from the river where I had lived with Raymond. It was quiet. It was mine. My phone buzzed. It wasn't a burner phone. It was my new number. Dinner. I looked at the ID, Sterling. I didn't reply immediately. I walked to the window. I touched the diamond necklace I was still wearing. I typed back, I am not signing any more contracts. Sterling. The reply came 3 seconds later. No contracts, no timelines, no leverage. I smiled. Where the place on the roof? West Loop. 7 o'clock. I put on the black dress. I put on the necklace. When I got to the rooftop, the rain had stopped. The sky was clear. Sterling was standing by the railing, looking out at the city. He turned when he heard my heels clicking on the deck. He looked different without the armor of the boardroom. He looked like a man who was tired of winning alone. You came, he said. I had nothing else to do, I teased. I am retired. He laughed. It was a good sound. So, he said, walking over to me. Raymond is in custody. Sierra is out on bail, but she is finished. The company is mine. You have your money. And you have your algorithm, I added. I do, he said, but I realized something. What? The algorithm predicts market trends, he said, looking into my eyes. It predicts risk, but it didn't predict you. He reached out and took my hand. His grip was warm. I don't want an asset. Autumn, he said softly. I want a partner, a real one. I am expensive, I warned him, and I have trust issues. I have time, Sterling said. I have all the time in the world. He raised my hand and kissed the knuckles, right over the spot where my wedding ring used to be. This time, no contract, he whispered, a surprise that made my heart stutter. Would you like to move forward slowly? I looked at the city lights. I looked at the man who had helped me burn down my old life to build a new one. Slowly, I agreed, one day at a time. The rain was gone, the storm was over, and for the first time in 90 days, I wasn't counting the seconds. I was just living them. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed the journey of Autumn and her meticulously planned revenge. It was a wild ride from that first rainy night in Chicago to the final showdown in Atlanta. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Are you listening in your car, cooking dinner, or maybe relaxing before bed? Please leave a comment below and let me know your location. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel Juliet Revenge Stories. Hit that like button to support the work, and smash the hype button so this story can reach even more listeners. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, stay strong and always keep your receipts.